The candles flickered against the wine-stained tablecloth, but it wasn't the glow of celebration that filled the room. It was the heat of something hidden, something unforgivable. Emily sat at the head of the table, her birthday dress, a soft lavender silk that hugged her gently, catching the light like satin water. Around her, the carefully arranged decor of her suburban Denver home looked just as she wanted. Elegant, warm, a touch romantic. But her husband, Mark, barely noticed any of it. He was late to dinner. Again. She'd lit the candles 15 minutes ago. The roasted garlic chicken she'd made, his favorite, was slowly drying in the oven. The wine bottle, uncorked too early, stood half-drained beside her untouched glass. The only sound in the house was the faint hum of the fridge and the tick-tick of the clock on the wall behind her. Before I continue, let me know where you are watching from, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more intense, emotionally charged stories like this one. The night is far from over. When the front door finally clicked open, Emily straightened. "Hey," Mark called, his voice already apologetic, his leather briefcase thudding onto the foyer floor. "Sorry. There was a situation at the office. Brad messed up the client files, and I had to stay back and..." She gave him a tight smile. "It's okay." Mark walked in, loosened his tie with one hand, and leaned down to kiss her cheek. His lips barely touched her skin. "You look great," he added as he pulled away. His eyes scanned the table. "Wow. You really went all out, huh?" Her chest tightened. She had gone all out. She always did. But what stung more than the forgotten flowers or the rushed apology was the gift box still sitting beside his briefcase, unwrapped, unopened. She knew it wasn't jewelry. Probably a generic card and maybe a candle set, if that. A last-minute grab from Walgreens. They ate in near silence. Emily tried to keep the conversation light. Asked about his day, brought up a new art gallery downtown she'd hoped he'd take her to this weekend. He grunted his replies between forkfuls of chicken and occasional glances at his phone. She stared at him from across the table, wondering when her husband had become a guest in her life. The worst part? She wasn't even angry anymore. She was just hollow. Her phone buzzed in her lap. She glanced down. "Ryan, happy birthday. Hope Mark's spoiling you tonight. You deserve it." Wine glass. She smiled. A real one, for the first time that evening. Ryan, Mark's best friend since college, had always been attentive, thoughtful. A little too thoughtful, maybe. He noticed things. He remembered details Mark forgot. Last week, he texted her just to say he heard a song that reminded him of her laugh. She shouldn't have liked that message as much as she did. "Ryan says happy birthday," she said aloud. Mark looked up. "Oh yeah? Haven't heard from him in a bit. Been busy, I guess." Emily shrugged. "He asked if we were doing anything special tonight." Mark let out a breathy laugh. "This is special, isn't it?" It should have been. But the way he said it made her feel like a chore crossed off a list. Later, after Mark had dozed off on the couch mid-movie, Emily slipped away to the kitchen to clean. The dishes clinked against the sink. She stared out the window at the quiet, dark street beyond the trees. Her birthday night, and she was alone with soap suds and silence. Then came the knock. 3 soft raps on the front door. She froze, heart kicking in her chest. Wiping her hands quickly, she crossed the living room and opened the door. There stood Ryan. Dark jeans. Black Henley shirt rolled at the sleeves. A bottle of red wine in one hand, and a crooked grin that pulled at the corner of his mouth. Thought maybe the party wasn't over yet. Emily blinked, stunned. You came all the way over here?" "Well, you didn't answer my last text. And I figured if Mark was being Mark, you might need a little backup." She laughed a little too loud. Her body relaxed in his presence, something inside her loosening like an untied ribbon. "Come in," she said, stepping aside. He entered, giving her a once-over. "You look wow." Emily blushed. She didn't mean to. They sat on the back patio. Ryan poured the wine. The cool night air wrapped around them like velvet, the distant chirp of crickets layering the silence. "So how was it?" Ryan asked, swirling his glass. She hesitated. "Fine." He raised an eyebrow. "That bad, huh?" Emily looked down, then up again, meeting his eyes. "It's like, he's there, but he's not there, you know?" Ryan nodded slowly, sipping. "You deserve more than just being someone's afterthought, Emily." The sound of her name and his voice made her chest ache. "You've always seen me," she whispered before she could stop herself. Ryan leaned closer, his voice soft. "Of course I have. Since the day he introduced us. I've always seen you." She turned to him. Their faces were inches apart. Her breath caught. A beat passed. Then she stood abruptly, her hands shaking. "I should check on Mark." Ryan stood too. "I didn't mean to." "It's okay," she said quickly, backing toward the door. "Thanks for coming." "Really?" He lingered, eyes searching hers. Then he stepped forward, arms out. She hesitated only a second before accepting the hug. It was meant to be friendly, but it wasn't. His arms stayed wrapped around her a little too long. Her face rested against his chest. She could feel his heartbeat. Or maybe it was hers. When he finally let go, she couldn't look at him. "Happy birthday, Emily," he said, voice low. And then he left. She stood there in the open doorway, bathed in moonlight, arms still tingling from his touch. Behind her, Mark was still asleep on the couch. Still unaware. Or maybe he wasn't. Emily stepped inside, slowly closing the door. The morning after her birthday, the sun rose like nothing had changed. But everything had. Emily stood in the bathroom, brushing her teeth, her eyes not on her reflection but staring through it. Her skin still tingled where Ryan's arms had held her. His voice echoed faintly in her ears. "I've always seen you." She rinsed, spat, and exhaled slowly. Mark was still asleep when she left for her morning walk. That had become her refuge. A few quiet miles through the neighborhood, earbuds in, head down, pretending everything was fine. But today, the weight of the night before followed her like a second shadow. Mark finally emerged from the bedroom around noon, groggy and shirtless, scratching the back of his neck. "Did you go out?" he asked, yawning. "I walked," she replied, turning a page in her book from the kitchen bar stool. "You were asleep." He nodded. "Sorry I passed out. I was dead." She didn't respond. He crossed the room, glanced at the coffee pot, then turned to her. "Did we have company last night?" Her fingers froze mid-turn on the page. "What do you mean?" "I don't know. I thought I heard voices. Around 11, maybe later." He rubbed his jaw, watching her carefully now. Was someone here? Emily hesitated only a second. Ryan stopped by. He brought wine. Mark's brows lifted slightly. "Why?" She closed the book. "Because it was my birthday, Mark." He remembered. There was a long, uncomfortable pause between them. Mark stared at her, a flicker of something, jealousy, suspicion, maybe guilt, surfacing behind his otherwise neutral gaze. "You could have woken me." "I shouldn't have had to," she said quietly. He looked away. Ryan had always been in their orbit. The fun best friend, the one who told inappropriate jokes at barbecues, who remembered how Emily liked her coffee even when Mark didn't. But there was a time, not so long ago, when that energy had shifted. It was the Christmas party. Mark had won too many drinks and spent most of the night boasting about work. Ryan, quieter than usual, had stayed beside Emily the whole evening, laughing with her, teasing her, brushing against her hand when reaching for the punch. It was subtle, too subtle to say anything, but it planted something. Now, those buried feelings were crawling back to the surface like weeds pushing through concrete. That night, Emily sat in her dimly lit bedroom, wrapped in a plush robe, staring at her phone. Her thumb hovered over Ryan's name in her messages. She typed, "Emily, thank you for last night. It meant more than I can explain." A few seconds passed before 3 dots appeared. "Ryan, you don't have to explain. I could see it in your eyes." Her breath caught. She felt exposed and understood all at once. "Emily, I wish things were different." "Ryan, they can be." She didn't respond, but her pulse quickened. Ryan sat alone in his apartment, his fingers gripping his whiskey glass, his phone face up on the table. The quiet buzz of his TV played a rerun of some crime drama, but he wasn't watching. He replayed last night over and over. Her scent, the softness of her body in his arms, the way she looked at him like he mattered. It tore at him. He shouldn't want this. She was his best friend's wife. But damn it, he did want her. And a part of him suspected that Mark didn't deserve her. Mark, the guy who forgot birthdays, who talked more about stocks than stories, who who hadn't noticed that his marriage was quietly cracking apart at the seams. Ryan drained the last of the whiskey, then picked up his phone again. Ryan, he's not the man you need, Emily. That's becoming more obvious every day. Mark invited Ryan over to watch a football game. It wasn't unusual, and yet this time, it felt painfully staged. Emily had considered going to her friend Melissa's for the afternoon, but some irrational part of her stayed. When Ryan walked through the front door, he paused when he saw her. She wore a simple blue dress. Nothing too revealing, but he noticed the extra care in her makeup, the way her hair curled around her collarbone. Their eyes locked for a second too long. "Hey, Em," Ryan said, smiling carefully. "Hey, stranger," she replied. "Wine." Mark walked in from the kitchen. "Nah, beer for us, babe." As if this was his show, Emily sat in the adjacent armchair, while the men settled on the couch. They watched the game, but the air between them hummed with something unsaid. Twice, Mark left the room to take calls. And in those moments, Emily and Ryan were alone, just long enough for tension to crackle like static. During one of those silences, Ryan whispered, "Why do you stay?" Emily didn't answer right away. She stared at the TV, blinking slowly. "Because I don't know who I am without this house, this life," she said softly. Ryan nodded, but when Mark re-entered the room, there was something sharper in his gaze, like he sensed the quiet shift, even if he couldn't name it. After Ryan left, Mark lingered in the kitchen longer than necessary. Emily came in, grabbing a glass of water. He turned to her suddenly. "You and Ryan talk a lot these days." She froze. "We always have," she replied cautiously. "Yeah, but..." Mark trailed off, then crossed his arms. "Is there something I should know?" Emily met his eyes, the defiance rising like a tide inside her. "Maybe you should start paying attention before asking questions like that." He stared at her, stunned. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means you don't even see me, Mark." "Not really." He laughed bitterly. "So you're what, flirting with Ryan to punish me?" "I didn't say that." "You didn't have to." They stood facing each other in the kitchen, years of resentment pooling between them like water under a cracked bridge. Emily set her glass down. "If you really think I'm the villain here," she whispered, "maybe that says more about you than it does about me." She left the room without another word. If you feel the tension rising, hit like and subscribe for more stories where secrets unravel, and choices come with a cost. What would you do if the person who truly saw you wasn't the one you married? By morning, Emily woke up alone in the bed. Mark had slept in the guest room. For the first time in months, she felt more relieved than hurt. And in her inbox was a single message from Ryan. "I meant every word. You deserve to be loved in the way you've always given love." The air in the house had changed. Mark and Emily moved like ghosts now, sharing a space but never the same moment. Conversations were short, polite, and painfully shallow. He left earlier for work. She came home later from errands. It was as if they were both waiting for the other to break the silence wide open. But silence, like glass, never shatters gently. Emily returned from the grocery store, arms full, keys clenched between her teeth. As she rounded the corner to her front porch, she stopped in her tracks. Ryan was there, sitting on the top step, waiting. He stood quickly when he saw her. "I shouldn't have just shown up," he said, "but I had to see you." She hesitated, looked back toward the driveway. "Mark's still at the office," she said. "You've got 10 minutes. They slipped inside. The door clicked shut behind them, and suddenly, the small hallway felt suffocating. "I can't stop thinking about you," Ryan said, voice low. "That night. Every word. Every second." Emily stood against the wall, her pulse ticking behind her eyes. "You can't keep doing this." "I know," he said, "but I also know something else." She swallowed. "What?" "That you feel it too." He stepped closer, not touching her, but close enough for her breath to catch. "I'm not asking you to make a decision now," he whispered. "I just want the truth." Emily's chest rose and fell, and she said it, finally. "Yes, I feel it too." There had been a charity gala. Mark was a speaker. Emily wore a red satin dress that made her feel like herself again, powerful, radiant. But Mark had barely noticed. Too busy shaking hands, too distracted by executives and investors. It was Ryan who had found her on the balcony, alone, drained. "You deserve better than to be ignored," he said quietly, placing a shawl over her shoulders. "You deserve to be adored." Emily hadn't spoken, but her eyes had lingered on his lips longer than they should have, and nothing had been the same since. Ryan left before Mark came home. Emily spent the next 2 hours staring at the untouched groceries, her hands clenched and unclenched on the granite counter. Her mouth was dry, and then she did something reckless. She walked into the living room, turned off the muted television, and waited. When Mark arrived, tie askew, stress lining his face, she stood like a statue in front of the fireplace. He froze. "What's going on?" "We need to talk," she said. Mark stiffened. "About what?" "About us. About Ryan." There it was. A grenade lobbed onto the carpet between them. Mark's eyes darkened. "You want to talk about my best friend?" "Yes." He paced once, then turned on her. "I knew it. I knew something was off. You too. What, are you sneaking around behind my back now?" "No," Emily said sharply. "But we've talked. And you know what hurts the most, Mark? That someone who isn't my husband notices when I'm drowning." He blinked. "You think I haven't noticed things? You think I haven't tried?" "When?" she snapped. "Between emails? During your 4th bourbon at the bar?" Mark's jaw tightened. "I work hard for this family." "We're not a family. We're roommates pretending to remember how to love each other." A bitter silence followed. Mark finally exhaled. "So what now? You leave me for him?" "I haven't done anything with him," Emily said. "But I've thought about it. And that should terrify both of us." Mark turned away, the weight of her words folding him inward. They didn't speak again. Dinner was silent. The TV played a comedy neither found funny. And when they went to bed, Mark stayed on his side, wide-eyed and blinking at the ceiling. Emily curled up near the edge of the mattress, her back to him, clutching a pillow like a lifeline. At 2:14 a.m., her phone buzzed. "Ryan, I can't sleep. Are you okay?" She stared at the message for a long moment, then typed no. "But I'm not running anymore." Mark came home early, unannounced. The living room was quiet, too quiet. He walked down the hallway, and then he heard it, Emily's voice. Soft, intimate, behind the closed guest bedroom door. He froze. "I just don't know what to do anymore," she said quietly. A man's voice answered. "Then let me do what he won't. Just once." Mark's heart stopped. The door creaked open, his own hand betraying him. Inside, Emily and Ryan stood facing each other. Not touching, but close. So close. When Mark stepped in, they both turned. The moment shattered. "What the hell is this?" Mark said, his voice shaking. Emily stepped back. Ryan's face tensed. "You don't want the truth, man. You just want the illusion." Mark charged him. Emily screamed. In seconds, fists were thrown. Furniture overturned. Years of friendship, loyalty, love, smashed to splinters. Ryan was gone. The house was a wreck. Emily knelt beside the broken vase, shaking, tears streaking her face. Mark leaned against the wall, blood on his lip, 1,000 emotions crashing through him. "You broke everything," he said hoarsely. "No," she whispered. "It was broken long before Ryan ever showed up." He looked at her. Really looked. And for the first time in years, he realized he didn't know the woman standing before him. And maybe he never had. The days after the fight were marked by a tense stillness, like the eerie calm before a thunderstorm. Mark had moved into the guest room. Emily kept to the master bedroom. They crossed paths like strangers in a museum, observing each other through glass, saying nothing, letting grief turn into resentment. But beneath the silence was something more potent. Reflection. Emily stared at the mirror one morning, running her hands over the curve of her cheekbone, her neck, her collarbone, as if trying to remember who she was before all this. She wasn't sure. Mark sat alone in his office, eyes red-rimmed, staring at the framed photo of their wedding day. Emily's smile was wide and genuine, full of laughter and possibility. He looked happy too, young, lean, still believing love could carry everything. But something inside him had hardened over the years. His phone buzzed. "Ryan, You don't have to forgive me, but don't pretend you were innocent in all this either. He read the message 5 times before deleting it, but the words wouldn't leave his head. By evening, Emily was scribbling thoughts into her journal, the one she kept hidden behind the bookshelf. This wasn't a letter to Mark. Not really. It was to herself. I lost myself slowly, one compromise at a time. A skipped conversation here, a buried resentment there. Until one day, I woke up next to a man I loved but couldn't feel anymore. Ryan reminded me what it felt like to be seen. But do I love him? Or do I just miss who I was when he looked at me? She didn't have the answer. Yet. The day arrived like a ghost. Emily's birthday. 1 year since everything had shattered. She spent the morning cleaning the house as if washing the walls could scrub the past off them. She didn't expect Mark to remember. They hadn't spoken in weeks beyond what was necessary. She had no plans. No cake. No candles. Until the doorbell rang. She opened it cautiously, and there stood Mark, wearing a blazer, holding a wrapped gift. She blinked. You remembered? He stepped in without asking. You think I forgot the day I met the woman who changed everything? She stared at him, heart tight. He placed the box on the table. Emily hesitated, then opened it slowly. Inside, a hardcover photo album. Handmade. Each page a memory. Their first road trip. The night they adopted their dog. A handwritten note tucked between the pages. Some of the best parts of me came from loving you. If we've truly reached the end, then let me say goodbye like the man I should have been. Tears welled in her eyes. Her fingers shook. She looked up. Why now? Mark's voice was low. Because I realized I've been mourning the marriage like a death, but never fought for the living woman standing in front of me. As night fell, they sat across from each other at the dining table. No candles. No grand speeches. Emily reached into her purse and placed a folded letter between them. This was for me, but you should read it. Mark unfolded the paper, eyes scanning each line of vulnerability, confession, and confusion. When he finished, he set it down gently. Do you love him? She hesitated, then answered honestly. I don't know. I think I love how he made me feel. But feelings fade. Memories stay. He looked her in the eyes. Do you love me? Emily stood, walked over, sat beside him. I think I never stopped. I just forgot how. There was no kiss, no cinematic music, just a quiet hand reaching for another, trembling but willing. Emily sat in the backyard, barefoot, journal open on her lap. Mark was on the porch swing reading. Ryan had left town. No farewell, no closure, just a text weeks earlier. Sometimes being the one they choose isn't the same as being the one they need. Goodbye. It had broken something in her, but it also freed her. She had made her choice, not out of guilt or habit, but out of something braver. Forgiveness. Of herself. Of Mark. Of the messy, imperfect journey that brought them back to something resembling hope. They weren't perfect, but they were trying. And that was everything. If this story made you feel, reflect, or even question your own relationships, then don't just scroll away. Like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more gripping tales where love is tested. Choices are everything, and not all endings are perfect, but they're real.